Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership. I am your co-host, Sam, and I have with me my dad, the guy who kind of started this whole thing, Thom Rainer.
Thank you.
My podcast co-host.
Yes.
You know, I never imagined when I was 8, 9, 10 years old that I would be co-hosting a podcast with you.
I never imagined what a podcast was when you were that age. You're going to do what on a pod? You're going to cast
if you'd
off
have told me,
pod?
if you'd have told me when I was a kid, hey, you're going to be doing a radio show with your dad, I'd have been like, what? No. Really?
Oh, I love it though. I love it. One of the
Indeed.
great things about being at Church Answers is, it's a Rainer company. I mean, it really is. We have a lot of great
family. It's a family-owned business.
But we got a lot of non-Rainers around us. But I love the fact that every day I get to spend time with somebody in my family as a result of Church Answers. And usually it's one of my sons, because your mother stays at the beach. So I'm hoping
and you don't have any daughters.
Yeah, I don't have
a sister.
That's right.
So you wouldn't be spending time with your daughter.
No, I would not be spending time with my daughter, just my 3 sons. So I like it. Anyway, I'm getting off track. I know that you want to say a good word about a good book that's coming out.
Yeah, thank you, Tyndale, for sponsoring the show. We mention them all the time because we love telling you about their resources. And there's one resource in particular that I think is a very important one. It's called Reason to Return. It's a book by Erica Anderson, and it delves into the reasons why many women are leaving the church. Now, Erica offers gentle insight, some thoughtful research. She invites Christian women who are hurt or disillusioned by the churches of their past to fulfill their unmet spiritual longings for God and community, and to consider what the church might still have to offer them. And here is the offer for you, the listener. I know you want to go pick up this book, again, Reason to Return by Erica Anderson. You can get it for 25% off, return 25, and you can go to navpress, NAVPRESS.com, go find the book, Reason to Return, put that coupon code in there, return 25, and get the book for 25% off. Again, that's Reason to Return by Erica Anderson. Go check it out at navpress.com.
And Alana's put all that in the show notes in case you didn't get the letters and numbers. So you can go there as well. We are going to talk about people leaving the church and what you can do to prevent it, Sam. I want to start off with a visual. I'm not going to put a PowerPoint up for our YouTube viewers because I know that we have a lot of audio listeners who would be totally clueless as far as putting something up visible. But I'm going to describe it, and it's very simple to describe. Think of 3 concentric circles. That's it. A core, a ring around that, and then a ring around both of those. Just that. So you've got a group of Christians that at your church, I would call the inner core to be the committed Christians, okay? They're the ones who show up almost every week. If they're not there every week, it's regular. And if they're out, it's for good reason. They're the ones that carry the church financially, spiritually, emotionally, ministry-wise. They're the reasons the church, from a human perspective, is doing what it's doing. I call them the committed Christians. Now, skip the middle ring for just a minute and go outside. The outside ring is called cultural Christians. Cultural Christians, we'll talk about them in a minute, but the cultural Christian is an oxymoron. For the most part, they aren't Christians. They have just in the past wanted to be connected to the church because they wanted to be accepted in culture. They want to be accepted in their neighborhood, with their family, with their business, with their politics. And so we'll talk about the exit of the cultural Christians, but I really want to focus on what the next wave of departures looks like it's going to be. And those are the casual Christians. These are the people that may at one time be committed, but now they're beginning to fade. I can think of an elder or some elders in churches right now that are beginning to act like casual Christians. They're beginning to fade away. And there could be some big departures taking place unless we do something about it. So we're going to talk about the committed. We're going to talk about the cultural. We're going to talk about the casual. And then we're going to finish this by talking about what we can do to prevent further departures. If you didn't get all that, which I fully understand, if you didn't get all that description, we're now going to break it down. Why the committed Christians will stick. The committed Christians will stick ultimately because they believe in the local church, and they believe that the local church is God's plan for mission on earth right now. And they are committed because they believe that this is what God wants them to do. Sam, I don't know why I'm thinking about Miss Margaret right now, but she's a good one to think about. A senior member at Sam's church. Um, to say that she's there with the doors open is not an exaggeration. And sometimes I wonder if she's opening the doors. Miss Margaret is a committed Christian, but she's a committed Christian to her church. And it is her behavior, being involved in ministry, serving people, going on her first international mission trip. It is her behavior that not only shows that she's committed, but it causes her to stick more, because the more committed Christians do in service and ministry, the more committed they will be, and the cycle becomes effective, building on top of one another. I went to Miss Margaret. She just seemed like a natural topic.
Yeah, I've got a good Miss Margaret story. This will just tell you how committed she is. One, she just recently, a couple years ago, went on her first mission trip. So she's done everything in the church, like just everything. But she'd never been on a cross-cultural international mission trip. And she's in her mid-80s, and she went and basically she told the church, and she has health issues. She can't get around as easily anymore. But she basically told the whole church, like, if I can do it, anybody can do it, and you guys better suck it up and start doing what you should be doing. And she's much nicer than that. But that's basically what she told everybody. But I'll never forget this one story. This was several years ago. And we had, it was a youth-led Sunday. Without getting all the details, it was not going well. Not the students. The students were fine. But we had some things that came up unexpectedly. And there was a particular band that wasn't really part of our church that was leading. And it was over the top. Let me just put it that way. When they started headbanging and twirling their hair on stage, I'm all for different kinds of music, and my church is pretty flexible, but it got a little out of hand. And I remember trying to go to the sound booth and get things fixed and trying to correct everybody. And hey, and it was happening. It was happening in front of me, and I felt like everything was getting out of control. And she grabbed my arm and she just looked at me and said, "Sam, do you see those students up there? They're really into this." And I said, "Yeah, I hope, but they may be the only ones that are really into this. I'm kind of concerned about everybody else." She goes, "No, let them do it. Today's for the students. Let them do it, and everything will be all right. Don't worry about it."
Wow.
And I thought, okay, I was just like, "Yes, ma'am. If you want to go up there and headbang with them, you go right ahead."
She didn't, did she?
No, she didn't. It's not her jam. Wasn't her jam. But I'll never forget that. I was just like, okay, that is a committed Christian who understands, like, this is for the students. This is not going to be every week, and it'll be all right. And she could care less about her personal preferences. It's all about that's the committed Christian right there. It's not about my preferences. It's about what's going to make disciples and do so in a way that honors God.
Well, you just nailed it. The committed Christian serves others. So this is an exaggerated statement, but I'm going to make it. The committed Christian serves others so they will never be disappointed, because it's not about me. So if they're not looking for their own preferences, they can't be disappointed when their own preferences are not met, because they're not even looking for them. Did I say that correctly?
No, that's really good. I'm going to share that. You'll never be, it would be rare for you to be disappointed in a church if you care nothing for your personal preferences. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Well, that's why they stick. And we still have a good number of committed Christians in our church. Post-COVID really showed the true colors of these committed Christians. And I tell you, it's given us a good indication of where we will move forward. Okay, let's go to the outer ring. We went to the inner ring. We're now going to the outer ring. We've got that middle ring as our main topic, but cultural Christians, Sam, we've talked about cultural Christians many times, and how some of them were hanging around during the pandemic, then found out they didn't really need church to be accepted by culture, so they dropped out. We have gone over database the percentages of people that have dropped out in different churches since COVID. Most of those, we think, we don't have all of the numbers, but most of those we think were the cultural Christians.
Yeah, I mean, cultural Christianity, by its own definition, was those who were connected to the church for a personal social benefit.
Yes.
They saw that the church was a way for them to be a respected business person, a respected politician. And obviously, you can be a business person, a business owner, and be a committed Christian. You can be a politician and be a committed Christian. But there were those who desired power, money, or some sort of notoriety, and they saw the church as a vehicle, at least in part, to get them there. And when the social benefit of church went away in our culture, so did the cultural Christians.
That's a good.
And that's why they're
That's a quote too. That's a quotable. When the social benefit of being being at church disappeared, so did the cultural Christians. You said it better than I did.
yeah. Well, that's why they're leaving in mass. They all came together because, hey, this is really beneficial for us to be here, and they're all leaving together because it's like, well, there's really no point in us. We're not gaining from this. Let's move on to something else. And you see a lot of this with corporations, and I love business. You and I both love business, so I don't want to knock capitalism or business or anything like that because I'm a free market capitalist. But you do see businesses gravitate in and out of certain issues and ideologies because it just benefits them. So I'll say cultural Christianity with the church is just it's not actually the thing. The thing is that people who are looking to benefit will attach themselves to whatever benefits them. It's just that the church is not that thing anymore. There's certain ideologies, certain movements that are more beneficial to them now, so they moved over there. And you do see this with particularly business and politicians, although it could happen anywhere. But yeah, they're gone. And I would say, I hear, and I've said this before, hey, cultural Christianity is dead. Good riddance. And I'd say, okay, I get the spirit of that, but it also pains me a little bit because at least they were at church to hear the gospel. And I'm sure some of these cultural Christians actually became committed Christians
for certain.
because they were at church.
Right.
So I would just say, everyone that kind of, looked at cultural Christianity as this huge negative thing, I get it. And I think it was fairly negative, but I'd also say there were some positives there too, because if they were going to a good church, a Bible-believing church, they were hearing the gospel. Now they're not, and that part pains me.
I am more pained by the latter than I am rejoicing over the former. I would rather have the cultural Christians back, and even with their low commitment, I would rather have them back at church. But my rathers are not what is happening right now in culture. Let's talk about that middle ring. If I've done concentric circles, and we've talked about the core being the committed Christian, the outer ring being the cultural Christian. Now let's talk about that middle ring, the casual Christian. And here's the point that we want to make in this podcast. The casual Christian is basically in transitory purgatory. That may sound a bit theological or it may sound a bit heretical. They are in transitory purgatory. And what I mean by that, they are in transition. They're in a holding pattern. There's the purgatory, but they're not going to stay there. They're either going to get more committed or they're going to leave the church. And I want our church leaders and committed members to be aware that that reality exists right now. And there's a large number of people, I don't have a percentage, it would be conjecture at this point, but there's a large number of people in our church that are the once a monthers, maybe every other month, occasionally twice a month, coming to worship services. This is going to be the next group to leave unless we do something about it. The natural progression will be for them to depart. The supernatural progression will be for us to seek God to bring them back in. Comment, Sam?
Yeah, and I would just say this is where rhythms and patterns come into play, and this is one of the things that we really push at West Bradenton is this expectation that you will be regular and faithful with us on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. And obviously we're not judgmental if people don't show up. The clerk used to hunt people down and like go get them out of their homes. We don't necessarily do that anymore, but that was,
you can offer that at Church Answers.
Yeah, the hunt you down ministry. We don't do that, and we obviously want to be gracious with people and work with them instead of against them. A lot of times with casual Christians, there's something happening in their life that's either drawing them in a little closer or pushing them away. In either case, you want to have a sensitivity about it. But we're also very clear with our people, hey, we expect you to be here. And it's not because we're looking for numbers. I mean, we're not a big enough church to even tout our numbers. So it's not that. This is what's good for you spiritually, that you would be in regular fellowship with the saints who care about you, that you would learn about Jesus on a regular basis, and that you would be in the body that enables you to exercise your gifts. You can't exercise your spiritual gifts outside of the body. And so this is good for your soul. That's what we tell people. And I do realize that if you are healthy as a church, you are going to have a group that are casual Christians. They're new. They're just fading. Maybe they're just getting back into church. They have been out of church for a while. I mean, this is not a bad thing. It actually shows a level of health. I get really concerned about these churches. Hey, we got 100 people and they've all been faithful believers and here every week for the last 30 years. Well, where are your new believers? I mean, you haven't won anybody to Christ. So, let's look at this properly. But if you don't disciple them, if you don't get them in what I call a rhythm and a pattern, they will fade. Nobody just naturally fades into more discipline. I mean, your exercise, your eating habits, that you have to have the discipline to do them well. You don't just naturally do it. Very rare would be a person who just, hey, I just eat spinach all day long just because I love it. I just naturally do that. I mean, I like spinach, but I think the point's made. You've got to work with your casual Christians. You got to have a plan. You got to have a discipleship strategy. We do rhythms and patterns at West Bradenton. We don't do a whole lot of big events for this reason, because we want people to be in a regular rhythm of being part of the saints.
I got my hairs cut today. You know my pattern. I find a stylist that is not a Christian and stay with them until they become a Christian. And I don't just leave them and say, no, you're a Christian now, I'll never pay you again. But I try to find people in my sphere of influence that are not Christians. So I got my hairs cut today, and we were talking about family, and I showed the stylist a picture of you, Sam.
Okay.
I did. And you were in the ocean, and there were all these people around you. You were baptizing them. Recent baptism?
Yeah, 21 it was a beach baptism. We had 21 baptisms.
I love that. In this particular picture, your arm is outstretched and your index finger is pointing. And she says, what is he doing there? Is he telling them they have to come over here and get dunked? I was just thinking about, we're going to go compel people to come in. I said, no, I'm sure he was just saying, you're next, you're next. She said, look at him. It looks like he's in charge there.
Yeah. I was saying you're next, and I was telling them, make sure we're Baptists. Make sure we go all the way under the water. That's what we do here. I know not all of our listeners. I know not all of our listeners practice immersion, but hopefully you can appreciate that. Yeah. I'm pointing to make sure the baptism happens properly, Dad.
Well, she loved it. Finally, what can your church do to prevent further departures, particularly with this group called the Casual Christians? Relationships are key. Getting people into groups is key, because that's where the relationships develop.
I'd put that number one.
Okay, number one.
Groups is 1A, membership classes is 1B. Like, it's tough to unwind each of those things. You got to have a good assimilation process through a membership class, and then you got to get them involved in some sort of regular group structure.
If they've gone through the membership class and they are in the casual Christian category where you see them fading, that would be where you'll do everything in God's power to bring them into a group, because they're probably not in a group if they are fading, assuming they've already gone through the membership class.
Name me a person that faded from the church that was regular in a group. That would be so rare. I mean, hey, I'm in my group a lot, whatever it is, semester-based, ongoing Sunday school, small groups, whatever, that's my group. I'm there all the time. And they fade from the church. It just doesn't happen. I'm sure there's a case out there, but it's just so rare.
And this is a global movement. I recently spoke virtually in Seoul, Korea, and the entire conference was about, they called them cell groups, but basically a small groups. The whole thing, they said, we've got to get back to this is our emphasis if we're going to have a sticky factor in our churches. So the three waves of Christian: committed at the core, cultural on the far outside, casual in the middle. We've been talking about what you need to do in order to make certain the casual come back toward the core instead of migrate naturally toward the cultural Christian. Hey, let me say this before we go. Church Answers University. fast growing certification in Christian ministry. It's for those who maybe have not gone to college or seminary or desired not to, particularly for ministry training, because we have college graduates, but they have not had ministry training in formal education. We've got people in Africa going through this. We've got people in France going through this. We got lots of people in the United States going through this. It is truly a revolutionary education program. It's at your own pace. You take 10 courses. We provide all the textbooks for you. Incredible professors teaching you, and you'll get this done in 6 to 9 months. And the full cost of everything, books and tuition, is $1,500, actually $1,497. We continue to get donors who will give us funds to provide scholarships for people. We have 6 available right now, 6 scholarships. So under $750, and you get this entire certification. You may want to take several of your lay people through this. You may want to become a ministry training center at your church, and this be your ongoing seminary at the church. It'll be your own training plant. So Church Answers University, you can see it in the show notes. We currently offer ministry certification or Christian ministry certification. We offer a certification in women's discipleship, and more are coming, including worship leadership as well. So check it out. 6 scholarships. If you want one of those scholarships, you need to contact Matt, M-A-T-T, at churchanswers.com. Tell him you heard about it on Rainer on Leadership. He'll know which donor to go to for this, and we will make it available for you. As always, thank you for being a part of Rainer on Leadership with Sam Rainer, Thom Rainer, and there are too many Rainers, but we all thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just 2. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just 2 or 3 things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism, and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo. Well? And maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.